הרב הראשי, ראשון לציון, דיינים, רבנים, חברים. I want to thank the Chief Rabbi for his extraordinary leadership of the community, particularly over the last couple of weeks. 2 weeks ago, many of us here gathered in Hendon for a remarkable gathering of prayer and of hope. And tonight we gather again for an evening of Evel, of mourning and of learning. And yet there is something that joins those evenings, and that is the astonishing sense of achdut, of unity, of concern for 3 boys, 3 families, 3,000 miles away, of a sense of Am Echad Belev Echad, one people with one heart, that has been quite inspiring. And how fitting it is that we should come together to learn this evening. Because before terrorists united Eyal, Naftali and Gilad in death, they were united in life by learning. Each of them, just hours before, had been sitting in the Bet Midrash before they set off home for Shabbat. Naftali and Gilad in Makor Chaim, Yeshivat Makor Chaim, Eyal in Yeshivat Shavei Chevron. On Eyal's desk in the Bet Midrash, he had stuck a petek, a piece of paper, on which he had written some thoughts. It's headed Tikkun Hamidot, working on yourself. And he had written a series of notes, not for us but for him, about Seder Shel Kochot, self-control, Rikuz, concentration, Zrizut, making the most of your time, Hatmada, persistence, Anava, humility, and at the bottom, in big letters, Kibud Morim u'Mishpacha, having respect for your teachers and your family. What remarkable, remarkable values for a 19-year-old to be working on developing in himself. And below that, he had copied out from Sefer Tikkun Hamidot of David Avital the following sentence: על האדם להחליט לפני כל מעשה שמעשה זה הוא הדבר החשוב לו ביותר בעולם ברגע זה. אין שום מחשבה או מעשה החשובים ממנו כעת. ואם יש, אז עליו לעשות את הדבר החשוב ביותר כרגע. Every person has to decide before every action that the action that he's about to do is the most important thing for him to do in the world at this time. There is no thought or action more important. And if there is, then he should be doing that most important thing at this time. And it strikes me that the most important thing for us to be doing at this time is what we're doing. To come together for some moments, to learn together, Li'ilui Nishmatam, to remember their holy souls. The last time that I spoke, at the last evening, it turned out that unwittingly I stole the pasuk that the Chief Rabbi was going to speak about. So I think that's why he's put me at the end this evening, so there's no chance that they will do that. I wanted to share with you a thought that I've been having about Parshat Chukat, the parsha that we were reading for most of the time, that we were hoping for the safe return of the boys. And this parsha contains with it one of the hardest questions in the Torah. Why was Moshe Rabbeinu not allowed to go into Eretz Israel? What was so terrible about this crime of not speaking to the rock but hitting it with a stick? It's a hard question. I know it's a hard question because there is one sefer that has 25 answers to this question. And you can be pretty sure that if there are 25 answers, then there are at least 24 people who are unhappy with every answer in that book. And yet, I want to suggest one answer that I think suggests that this tragedy is a tragedy, but is maybe different to many of the tragedies that have befallen our people in our history. You know, the question is actually harder than it seems, because we know that this is not the first time that the Israelites were short of water. If we go back to Sefer Shemot nearly 40 years earlier, they had run out of water before, also in a place called Midbar Tzin, also in a place called Merivah. And there, what did Hashem tell Moshe to do? He told him, Kach et hamateh v'hiketa et hatzor. There he told him, take this stick and hit the rock. So before you can ask a question about Moses, you have to ask a question about Hashem. Why did he change the rules of the game? Very hard question. Rav Yitzchak Bernays, who was the teacher of Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, suggests that actually in those two episodes is hidden the answer. 40 years earlier, in Sefer Shemot, the children of Israel were about to enter a period of 4 decades in the wilderness. And in this period, their lives would be governed by divine providence. They would be protected during the day by a pillar of cloud, at night by a pillar of fire. Their food would be manna that came from heaven. This was the nature of their experience in the wilderness. But 40 years later, they are in the brink of entering the land of Israel. They are about to enter a new environment. And in this new environment, the response to a scarcity of water is not to take the staff, that staff that did the miracles in Egypt, that staff that split the Red Sea. The response is not to wait for a miracle. Yes, says God, take the staff with you to show that I'm still with you. But he says to Moshe, what will lead the people from now on, when you go into your own land, is not divine providence, but your own potential, your own voice, the words that will come out of your mouth. And remarkably in the whole of the Torah, there are hundreds of times when Hashem says to Moshe, Daber el b'nei Yisrael. And yet on every occasion he continues, Va'amarta lahem, and says to Moses exactly what he is supposed to say. Only on this occasion, when he says, V'dibaltem el hasela, does he leave it to Moshe to find the words within himself. And Moses wasn't able. And perhaps Moshe knew that. If you go back to the burning bush, he tells Hashem, don't send me, ki lo ish dvarim anochi. I am not a man of words. I don't have words of my own, says Moshe. And Hashem makes him a promise. He says, Ani eyeh im picha, I will be your mouth. Horeiticha asher tdaber. I will tell you what to say. And he does that again and again, until they come to this moment when a different kind of leadership is required. A different kind of nationhood is required. The nationhood to build a home with your own voice and your own potential. Today, every single one of us can take a step that Moshe Rabbeinu was not allowed to take. And that is to step forward into the land of Israel. We can step forward and we can be a part of the voice that builds the land of Israel. And Eyal and Naftali and Gilad were a part of that voice. But more than that, this terrible tragedy, it's the last in a long, long line of tragedies that have befallen our people. And yet we have to recognize that this tragedy took place in a Jewish homeland, where we have a voice, where we have a defense force that could look for these boys and can look for their perpetrators. We have to remember that they received hespedim, not just from rabbanim, but from presidents, from prime ministers, from leaders of a sovereign state of Israel. Their brothers, their sisters, their classmates will grow up, please God, in this land to be a part of that voice, to raise families that will continue to build this homeland, a land which our grandparents and our great-grandparents could not even have dreamed of. So when we think of them, may we commit ourselves to continuing to build a homeland, a society, a country, which is a credit to their memory. Yehi Zichram Baruch.